Hello there, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into Sin's Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So today we're going to be reviewing Wild is the Witch by Rachel Griffin. I will tell you, when I read The Nature of Witches, I absolutely love that book. In fact, at work, that's my number one go-to when people come to me asking for a really good witchy read. I say The Nature of Witches, 100%. It's amazing. That book's phenomenal. So when I went to pick up Wild is the Witch, my expectations for this book were pretty high. I have to say this book was just a little bit of a letdown comparatively. I felt like, I mean, it wasn't a bad book. If you're looking for a really good slow burn enemies to lovers romance, this is definitely one for you. I think Griffin is really good at building up her atmosphere in the story. I felt transported. I felt like I could feel the morning mist. I could feel that temperature drop in the night, the wilderness around me. It's very immersive, her writing style. I felt like I was transported into the book, into the wilderness of Washington. But I think what falls, shallow is the wrong word, but it's the only word I can think of. It feels kind of shallow in comparison to The Nature of Witches. And I mean, you're following, God, I can't remember. I remember his name, but I feel like her name is, Iris. I was right. I don't know why I was thinking, no, it can't be Iris. You're following Iris, and she is a witch. Now, I love this, again, about Griffin. It's contemporary fantasy. So, it's our world. We just happen to know witches exist. And they have their own organization, and, they work within the law. Because their power is connected to nature and wilderness, they tend to veer aloft to, taking care of nature, animal life. And that's what Iris does. Her connection is to animals. So she works in animal preservation with her mother. They relocated after an incident with her friend. Her friend tried to turn her boyfriend into a witch, and unfortunately it resulted in his death that Iris did have to witness. It's a very traumatizing moment for her because she did have to go on trial for it. And even though she had no idea what was going on, she still feels this guilt, like, no, that was my best friend. I should have seen what she was going to do. I should have seen how much she loved her boyfriend and how much she loved magic. I should have seen. So she's racked with so much guilt over this incident that didn't involve her, that she had absolutely no control over it. And it forced her and her mom to leave, separate from her father, who was just like, I'm kind of done with all this witchy stuff. So her life has been upheaved, she's gone through stuff. She has a lot of baggage. So at the animal preservation, she doesn't tell people she's a witch. She keeps it to herself. And Pike is very vocal about his dislike of witches. He doesn't tell you why, and when you get to, as you're learning, because they did inadvertently play a hand in his little brother's death. They played a part in it. But you understand. So they don't really like each other because he is a little obnoxious. But he's not so obnoxious that you, the reader, hate him. Like, I didn't really have a problem with him. I thought, oh yeah, you're a cocky one, for sure. But there was nothing really, for me personally, inherently dislikable about him, because he was a hard worker and he really did care about the animals around him. But you understand her dislike of him, because for her, animals is different. She has a mental connection to animals. And so she feels their pain. So her experience with taking care of animals is different than his. And he begrudgingly respects her, whereas she barely tolerates him. She's just like, oh God, he's so obnoxious. So he makes a flippant comment about, strangely enough, her friend. her friend who has been, released from prison after the incident, and it was on the news. And he says, she's the one who should have been burned, right? He has a lot of pent-up rage, and you get why as the story evolves. And it took Iris. It took her off guard. She was surprised by the vehemence. So what she does is she casts a spell. She has no intention to actually casting the spell and releasing it. She's just writing down her spell and preparing it just so that she can do something with her hands and her emotions to just kind of release it into the ground, into the earth. Unfortunately, a Snow White Owl, which is a magical amplifier, swoops down and steals her curse. What's her curse? To turn Pike into a witch. What was her friend arrested for? Trying to turn her boyfriend into a witch that resulted in his death. And now she's just like, oh, shit. So without telling anyone, she's like, the owl's injured. I have to go after it. Her mom's like, okay, take Pike with you. And she's like, what? And she's like, yeah, just take Pike with you. I'd rather both of you go out than one. There are a lot of comical scenes between her and her mom, but it was that romance that kind of just caught me off guard. I think it felt rushed, whereas the romance in the nature of witches had a lot of time to grow. This one didn't. It felt rushed, and that's why I think to me it felt a little shallow. Because even on their first day out, he lifts up his arms and he shows his stomach by accident, and she's just like thinking about what lies beneath the belt. And I'm just like, you spent all your time, the past 75 pages bitching about how much you hate him, but all of a sudden you're like, ooh, what's below that belt there? That it didn't seem like that was Rachel Griffin's writing. Almost, it felt like a completely different person, and it felt a little out of place, and it felt out of character for Iris. I would have understood that because they do bond, and I do love their bonding moments. I like their development of the relationship. I still think it developed a little too fast, but considering the stakes of the novel and the tension and the fact that they do have very limited time, and the fact that they are alone in the forest together, going through a bunch of wild things, I can understand it and I can accept it and, kind of get behind it. But it just felt rushed. I liked seeing that friendship develop between them. So I would have appreciated that scene better if it came in a little later after some of their bonding moments, honestly. And I think it would have helped the book feel less shallow, because for both of these characters, the core of the story is letting go of the past, letting go of the baggage, and letting go of all the guilt and anger and hatred that bubbles and festering inside of them, It's cathartic for these two characters, their bonding moments, which is why I appreciated it a lot. And for Iris herself, she's learning that it wasn't her fault, what her friend did. It's not her responsibility to control and make sure her friend does everything by the book. People are responsible for their own mistakes. People are responsible. The most she can do is just keep on living and keep on going and just accepting life for what it is and making sure she doesn't fall into those same traps and let them destroy her, which they did threaten to do in this book. Overall, it was a really good book. It was high stakes, high tension, a nice slow burn romance. It just felt a little rushed. And I think I would have liked a little bit more of that development before all the, oh yeah, I'm checking you out moments of the book. So, it just, Nature of Witches was better in my opinion. Honestly, this book, it just faltered in comparison. So I have to give this book a 3, whereas I gave Nature of Witches, I think I gave it like a 4.5 or a 5, because that book is just phenomenal. Phenomenal. So this one I would give a solid 3. It was a good book, but it just did falter in comparison. So that being said, I will of course include links in the description below if you want to check out the book yourself and purchase it, read it, see what it's all about. And on that note, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with all your book reading friends. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.